So Dark Tower is happening again. Right, it is happening. Now, this before was going to be an Amazon Prime thing.
Like a
Dark Tower
series,
series
yeah.
adaptation in the works, and they shot a pilot for this as well for Amazon Prime, but it got binned off. So they didn't like the pilot and they binned it off. So this is from Mike Flanagan and Trevor Macy. So let's just get this is literally breaking news, pretty much. Confirming recent rumors, Deadline is reporting that a new small screen adaptation of Stephen King's The Dark Tower from Mike Flanagan and Trevor Macy's Intrepid Pictures is in development for Prime Video. So there's obviously the rights holders of this. So they're still going ahead with that. Prime Video, sorry. Flanagan, who brought us the likes of Dr. Sleep, Gerald's Game, Midnight Mass, and The Haunting of, obviously it's a series now, has been hoping to get a new take on the classic tale off the ground for years. That's something he's personally campaigned for, and now has the opportunity after acquiring the rights to the sprawling fantasy sci-fi horror western book series from King himself. Interesting. So it's not Prime Video. Prime Video, maybe they own the distribution rights, but now the production rights have gone to Flanagan. I don't know. While speaking to the trade, Flanagan outlined his ambitious plans for The Dark Tower, which include up to 5 seasons and potentially 2 features to wrap up the story.
Oh, wow.
I wrote a pilot. Yeah, that's a lot. I wrote a pilot. We view it as a series that's going at least 5 seasons, at least. And having lived with this project as long as I have an enormous amount of it worked out in my brain. But I have a pilot script I'm thrilled with and a very detailed outline for the first season and a broader outline for the subsequent seasons. I think eventually, if we're able to get it going, there are some other writers I want to fold into that process, whom I've worked with before. I think they would be really fabulous for a very small, intimate writer's room where we can continue to break it. I'll tell you, more than half of my life, I've closed my eyes and been able to watch a lot of this play out. I've dreamed about this. That first shot, which comes right off at the first incredible sentence of the first book, The Gunslinger. I've had that image just rattling around in my head since I was an undergrad. It's going to have to get out of there eventually. I really need to get it out of my head. The pilot script is one of my favorite things I've ever gotten to work on. It's been surreal working on that. So we've been floored and grateful that Stephen King trusts us with such an undertaking, something so precious to him, and we hope to find the right partners to realize it. So just that, I mean, that's it. First things first, the fact that Flanagan is moving away from Netflix, I think that's probably a good thing in some regards. Just stifling creativity. Not that the stuff he's not done for Netflix has been good. I've enjoyed some of his stuff for Netflix. But this is massive, pretty big thing. The fact that Stephen King trusts Flanagan means nothing. He'll trust anyone that gives him money. He's essentially a whore at this point.
And he always was. And he always was.
Yeah. Happy to say that out loud. You want to suck King's D? I don't care. I think this could be good, you know? Like, I think that there's a lot of positives about this. I think Flanagan is hit or miss for a lot of people, but I quite like some of his existentialism that he throws in. And I think this, as a vehicle, you know, to have that sort of existentialism on screen, I think could be really good. I think this is the right vehicle to have some of that stuff. So, Andre, what do you think about this, first and foremost?
I would have been more excited had it not been Amazon, but I don't trust it because it's Amazon. It's the I trust the filmmaker. I trust Flanagan. I was pleasantly surprised by his horror stories on Netflix, both of them. The manner more so than Hill House. But even so, I think that he may meet a challenge when adapting this for Amazon, because the same people that did all of that subversion with Amazon already, they're still there. So I think the only way this can be good is if we get a repeat of what happened with Reacher. Basically, what happened with Reacher was that you had Jennifer Salke and her crew over there. They were so busy with The Lord of the Rings and with the Wheel of Time and all of that jazz that they didn't really pay attention to Jack Reacher. It was kind of allowed to go under the radar because they didn't really care. It was something that had been brought in by the previous administration. It wasn't anything too toxic like Conan that had to be shut down. They got like the scripts and like, okay, you have the representation behind the scenes and everything, whatever. Just do what you got to do and let's focus on this. That's how Jack Reacher could be as good as it was. Are they going to do the same thing with the Dark Tower? Or is this so high profile that it's going to need the personal overview of Jennifer Salke and her people? You know, the same people who are right now a little bit under fire because of how bad the Rings of Power turned out. They really have to prove themselves now. They really have to show that their input is a good one. Does that mean they're going to take to micromanaging even someone like Flanagan? I'm worried it might.
But I don't think you can.
Not so excited for this for that reason.
I don't think you can micromanage him if he's got the production rights. If he owns the production rights, how can you micromanage him? He'll just take it elsewhere.
Yeah, then he can take it elsewhere. So hopefully they have all of that sorted out. But still, everything that happens under Amazon has to satisfy their diversity criteria and stuff like that. And for this to even be announced, he must have agreed to some. But
he has that stuff in his Netflix shows. So there is a lot of diversity in his Netflix shows, but it's not very. It's not like. I mean, I never found it intrusive. Put it that way. You know, I never found it to be the message in terms of.
Yeah, and that's my question.
The
that's kind of like my question here, which so I don't know enough details about this, but just that it's on Amazon, that gives me reason for pause. If this had been under Netflix, ironically, I would have been more excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, on paper,
because of his working relationship.
Yes, and also because Netflix, they have learned their lesson. They are no longer pushing the extreme wokeness that they were just a couple of years ago, because they got hit really, really hard right in the teeth from it. Yeah, and so you had like the boss of Netflix even come out and tell all their staff that we're going to put out some content that you don't like, and if you have a problem with that, there's the door.
Yeah,
that's unheard of. Amazon hasn't done any such thing.
It's the right fucking thing to say as well. Stop letting these bitches run your company.
Exactly. But Amazon hasn't said that. Amazon and Tom, you've been saying this, I credit this to you, that when it comes to all this wokeness, ESG and stuff like that, Disney and Amazon are going to be the last to fall.
Yeah. But I mean, what I was going to say as far as like, take away the creative side of it, take away any of the woke business, I'm intrigued because I don't like current Stephen King. I think he's nuts. But I've said it time and time again. There's lots of his classic novels that would lend themselves to television series or mini series so brilliantly that his stories have never really been captured, quite right in film or television because of that. So I have no problem with that. Even like readapting some of these things, sure, I'll give him some shit because I did retweet one day because he pissed me off. I said, yeah, well. I can't remember what he said. It was like Twitter isn't cars and something or other to Elon or whatever. I'm like, yeah, and books aren't movies, and the Shining movie is better than the book. In that respect, he's a wacky writer. But if you get the right people behind his stuff, there's a lot of great story there. And Dark Tower is one of those things that it has had an avid fan base. I mean, I don't know how big it is, but it's had a very long running avid fan. Like, I don't know how many of my cousins, aunts, and uncles where I've been to their house and they have the full Dark Tower series on their shelves. So like that, I know could lend itself to a really interesting kind of series, but and it does kind of tie King's universe all together into like this cohesive, like they all kind of take place in the same universe kind of thing.
Yeah. Nick?
I'm kind of with Andre on this, on kind of being concerned with it being over on Amazon, especially after the disaster of the Rings of Power. Plus, I'm curious if if he's gonna learn the lessons from the 2017 movie, going forward with this show, because if I remember right, I don't think that movie was well received by fans.
Not at
Not
all.
Who
at
played in
all,
it?
but that movie was produced by Tom Rothman. Let's not oversee and forget about that. And Tom Rothman, as good as he was for Fox, this was the one thing where the old Tom Rothman, the one who ruined Fox, reared his face, because here you have a genre property that he has absolutely no understanding of whatsoever, yet he thinks it needs his personal supervision and notes to make it better, which of course completely ruined it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think Andre, not to interrupt, I think part of
that.
that had more to do with him cutting the budgets. Because remember when he did, and again, I'm not defending Tom, but I will also be the first one to admit that when he came on to Sony, it was the best thing that ever happened to Sony. I agree with you for the most part, Andre, but I think in that, because you had a few movies right there that he come in and he cut the budgets of. This
is true.
Ghostbusters and Men in Black 4.
Yeah.
He all came right away, and the first thing he did was cut their budgets by a ton.
Yeah, this is true. He did not personally oversee this one. What he personally the one who did that was actually Amy Pascal. So yeah, you're right. That's even worse, if anything.
Yeah.
Well, I think
so,
to sort of cap that off in terms of this one specifically, Larry is super looking forward to this. Celebrating immediately, because when asked what his adaptation would look like, Flanagan simply responded, "Like the books." So someone that has this is not a given, right? That obviously people that have a deep love for things, but this is quite positive. I have an air of positivity with respect to this, I think, and I think that there's,
I was just going to say, I don't know much about Dark Tower, but I just kind of heard some just real general stuff about the books and the storyline. And so when the movie was coming out, I was actually like, yeah, this actually looks pretty cool. I want to check this out. And then I heard how much the fans hated it, so I completely skipped it. So the fact that he just said that this series is going to look more like the books, and it looks like he's going to be more true to what Stephen King wrote in the book series. I'm looking forward to actually checking this out, even though I don't really know that much about it. I think the premise is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to go and get immersed in something new. Like I'm pretty keen to sort of dive into something that I'm unfamiliar with and sort of get suckered into a new universe. So I think this is positive. Let's get us some super chats real quick again. Tom working for $2 says fondness for Dark Tower, but why? Too soon?
Well, and that was that's the other thing that we didn't really address is that Sony movie. It wasn't an actual adaptation of any of the books. It was an original
their own
story based on the idea. Yeah.
It's like an Elseworld adaptation.
Pastiche or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Larry says it better be at least 5 seasons. It's 8 books. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like he's going into it from what looks like he's going into it with the right approach. It's 8 books, at least 5 seasons. I mean, that's a pretty good attitude to have. So, yeah, positive-ish.
Yeah, I think
Tom
Rusty's
Working
right.
says,
I think it was a sequel, yeah.
Tom Working says, wait, Dr. Sleep worked. Good interpretation given the shadow of Kubrick. I didn't hate Dr. Sleep. I don't think it was great.
But I think that's why the movie worked so well, is because they didn't hesitate making it a sequel to The Shining. That's why.
Yeah, that's true.
That book only exists because of King's, he had this fucking thing with Kubrick in the movie. He's like, Kubrick didn't get my movie or get my book. So he reworked the story to fit with that, and it's really weird, but it works in the movie aspect of it. The book side of it, I've always had my issues with it, but yeah.
Yeah.